So the question now is, how do we get there? And what are the steps that you feel are the most important to take to get us from square one, from where we are now, from the ideas we've talked about, to actually implementing them?
Yeah. So in this
Go ahead.
sense, like there's a whole bunch of things you can do, and you can take inspiration from the things that the debating organizations have done that have had some effect, that worked to some extent.
Okay.
So you definitely need to like set up an online presence, like a website or something, for this whole thing, where you have all the like documents, like including like rules and like sort of the boring stuff, but also like mission statements, and where you're sort of compiling all of the things that you have created, and sort of try to continuously, it's like a long-term project, be building up it as like a beacon on the internet, that eventually the bigger it is, the more it would by itself attract people. So that's like one thing, that the earlier you set it up and start building it, like the better. Then,
Okay.
like I said, you could definitely start with that essay writing competition. I think it's a great idea
Okay.
because it's generally easier to make people participate in an essay writing competition than debating competition. So it's more like broadly appealing, because especially if you then make it that they don't actually have to debate to win anything in person live, that sort of also includes all the introverted people and everybody else who's just perfectly fine having ideas. It's just that's a different skill than rhetoric. They are intertwined in that improving one improves the other.
Yeah.
But you can be perfect critical thinker and not be good speaker at all, and you can be great speaker and not be able to come up with original ideas. That can happen. So you can, if you're most interested in the ideas, then a essay writing competition will get you more ideas in a
Okay.
format that's already codified, and that you can sort of more organize, we can more manage it more easily, go through it more easily, and also like document
So,
it more easily.
okay,
So
that makes sense to me. I think that's a great place to start. But the only problem I have with just the essay writing is it's not quite as, I guess, entertaining.
yeah. But
From
that's the
that
thing, that
perspective.
there will be many moving parts. You can't like
Yeah.
think that one thing will do it. I think is one of
Yeah.
the outcomes.
Start
So
with
it's a
that.
bit like a complex effort.
Okay.
So because one of those things, like just trying to have the presence on the internet where people interested, eventually more and more people interested in the thing are contributing ideas and in more entertaining ways being presented. Because the more people you have, the more likelihood you will be able to even produce videos. Some of them will produce even videos, or like the influencer type stuff,
Right.
not just writing, not just content. Even though, of course, the essay writing competition will give you a regular intake of content that
That's
that
cool.
you fill the site with.
I
So,
actually really like that. So if you take the best essays, for example, and you put them out there to maybe the best video editors or the best documentary type people,
yeah,
and have them, pay them a
illustrate them.
certain
Like one
amount.
of the things that you can do, and you can just pay people to do on like Fiverr, is
Yeah.
you give them a text, and you can pay people to voice it, and you can pay people to write an animation for it.
Right.
So because that's like the infotainment, so one of the newest formats is that you take somebody's speech or text that's spoken by somebody who is good at voiceover, and you pay an illustrator to just like try to illustrate the ideas.
Yeah.
That's really good stuff. That
Yeah.
you can pay people to do, or then eventually get volunteers, like people who won't want to do it just because of the cause.
I actually
That who
really
have
like
the
that.
skills.
One of the, those the ones where they're drawing everything as they say it, right? The story of stuff. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
one of
yeah,
the
yeah.
first ones of those I ever saw. It was really, really effective,
Yeah,
I
no,
thought.
those are great. Like that's the kind of content that you want to be producing, very, very likely. And you can
Yeah.
get people to, for free, definitely submit the ideas in some kind of competition. So the text to get the text, and then just either you get to, I guess, it'd be fairly easy to get some volunteers to do the voiceover fairly
Mm.
early, who have the skills. Of course, it has to be somebody who has like does some acting or something, so like the level is at least adequate.
Right.
And the most involved part is the animation part. So then you probably have to be from the start selective of like really starting from the best stuff, because there
Right.
will be a limited amount of like how much you can actually do of that,
Right.
because that's the most expensive in any calculation, even in terms of like you actually the amount of people who would volunteer it would be the smallest.
Any idea
So
what
yeah,
any idea what the general cost of something like that would be? Like an animation,
depends on
like say
length.
animation like
Depends on
that.
length. They usually paid for how much text slash time it would take. It's like how long the whole video would be, or it could be. You could do something. You could do briefs for tens of dollars. So then it just becomes much more expensive if it's supposed to be like really like a half an hour, like 15 minutes, half an hour. That would
Yeah.
be like hundreds of dollars, maybe low thousand, depending on the quality of the person doing it.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty reasonable, actually. I mean, if you just think of, say, the top 10 essays, you wanted to make a little sketch to try to,
Yeah.
illustrate them as best as possible, and just read them as you go and
Yeah.
illustrate as you're reading,
Yeah,
essentially, the
because
cooler,
it's
funner
also
parts of it.
a additional motivating factor for the participants because they could know that like would hire an actor to voice their idea and an animator to make it into an educational video type stuff, a motivational video.
Yeah,
That
I
that
like
by
that.
itself is like a selling point for participate, and that will present you on the that's like a, because generally like just writing something and it existing on the internet is not the best way to increase the awareness of everybody about the idea or the person who created it.
It's
It
gotta be it's gotta be cool. It's gotta be
yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
YouTube.
It's gotta be on
Right?
YouTube. It's gotta be a video on YouTube with both good audio and good video slash animation type stuff.
I like
Uh,
that. That's really good.
so it's essentially like to even go towards like popularizing not just the idea but also the author
Yep.
of the idea. So it's I would see like this is like a great like sort of mechanism that you could do at the start. And I look like all the writing competitions, even if I give pretty short on budget, most writing competitions, and people would definitely still participate in them because look, are you there?
Yeah, I just had a little power surge. Can you
Oh,
hear
yeah,
me?
right.
That was weird. Just all the lights
So
went
yeah,
off.
so you
Okay.
would you would have like $1,000. Like most of the
Okay.
writing competitions of any kind, if they have reward for the best submission,
Hmm.
it's generally in the range of one to like at most I've seen $15,000. So that's like what people who like would be willing to participate in that type of competition would be used to.
That's good.
So that's like definitely fair because like even like for the reward, like in terms of consideration of how much is enough, it's like okay, imagine you would be paying the person for the time they spent working on the thing, and you want to like reward them handsomely for that, but the specific amount of time that it would take them, something like $1,000 is really fair compensation for writing an essay. That's definitely
Cool.
like as a writer I can say way good enough. Then you could also want to have, if you have more money, you could just give it to more people, give some amount of money based on the tiers of like however you want to decide which are the best. Like I
Yeah.
said, the best model for that would be more of a festival than a tournament model. Festival model is you have tiers of rewards and you don't say how many of those have to be given that year. Because like
Hmm.
I've been to recitation competitions and these are poetry festivals, and those were like those are very similar to writing festivals and competitions. It works like this usually. In like art category, like the best ones, best level, best tier would be called laureate. But like one year there would be one, and another year there would be six,
Right.
because like it's
Yeah.
about like the level of quality that it is. It's even though it's subjectively judged, like, but still like there's like a that those that stand out, like really stand out from the rest. Then you have
Okay.
honorary mentions, which are like people who like maybe it's not the best thing ever, but who clearly put in a good effort. And again, some year like two people would get it, and another year 10 people would get an honorary mention. And then you can. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Just the camera.
Yeah. I
Glitch.
think. Yeah. I think I've just got some weird stuff going on with the house.
Yeah.
It's just the power's going on and off occasionally, but I think
Right.
I'm good. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah. So you would have
Okay.
then,
Go
and you
ahead.
could have something like you said, the reward for participation. If you wanted like to give everybody
Yeah.
something, which is like a few dollars at least or something, then sure. So you could
Yeah.
have like three tiers, and the three tiers would be like the best ideas,
Okay.
then honorary something like honorary mentions, and then
Mm.
you could have everybody who participated get something. If again depends on your budget.
Is that a fair amount for participation? Do you think, like
What?
$100, or
Definitely.
do
Like
they?
this is the thing. Like you would have we have competitions where $100 would be the main prize.
Okay.
Again, that's like the range would be between 10 and 100. I think is like where you would
All right.
find something like a participation. So those are
That's
like
cool.
normally because what I'm trying to say is like sure it's good to have high prizes. It's just that you don't necessarily have to be more generous than is reasonable. Because
Right.
you still have a budget and you can always use the money for something that's essential.
Yeah.
So it's finding like what's expected, what's normal, what's a fair reward, and would still motivate people for sure to participate. So you
I
could
like it.
even maybe have like add one extra tier, and like the super very best one would have $10,000 or something. So it's like
Okay.
the amount of tiers and the exact numbers would have more to do with your budget
Right.
than anything else, because you just want to like to at least like somebody should get something fairly good, and then people will participate. Because like people participate with the understanding usually in the competitions that they might get nothing. Like for instance, we've created in Opera Game Jam, like I said, we've made the game, and the like first 3 prizes are with rewards, with cash rewards, first three places, and those are I think in the ranges of a couple $1,000s each, and there's like 1,900 to 1,000 entries into that game competition. And I can assure you that even if it was just like $1,000 just for the winner, people would still do it gladly, because it's not just about that. The competition is also about highlighting yourself, about becoming more visible, with like, your work being appreciated, even like by just getting an audience. Because at the very least, everybody who participated in the competition will be an audience, to the competition. And those would probably be selected people who probably are opinion leaders in their little groups and communities type stuff. So that by itself is good stuff. So and on the internet could be quite a bunch of people.
Okay, very cool. Awesome. So what's the soonest you think I could do something like this? So I'll start working on the rules, maybe this week, and I'll kind of I don't know how much time you have to help me with it, but I'll
definitely
throw
look
kind
at
of
it. Whatever
a draft of the basic rules. I think definitely the essay competition is a great place to start. And I can maybe start it out with, do I start big or do I start small? What's the question? If I want to get the most attention, do I start with $1,000, $10,000 reward, or do I just start with
generally, I think would make sense to start like small to moderate, because you want to have room to grow. So you should not start at your 100%, probably current 100%. Because then however the things go, you could then sustain improvement over a couple of years, probably, even if it won't necessarily be commensurate to the whole thing super growing immediately. So that's one thing. Cool. So that's something you can definitely do, because like I said, like what you would probably want to do is at some point have some kind of, and that could be more the tournament level kind type stuff, have in-person events. You could also have online versions, of course. And if you logistically, of course, the online versions are always easier. It's like something to start with. If you want to just begin and to like work out the rules, work out the kinks and stuff, an online only thing, especially like the writing competition, that should be fairly easy to set up, because like, okay, so you set up a website, you hire someone to just give some content on the website that explains what the competition is about. Then you probably have to pay for some marketing on social media, so that some people see it somewhere of like the various target groups, and you send it like invitations to specific people who you think might be interested, that you've identified somehow on the internet, who then like with the understanding that they can definitely share the invitation with anybody, sort of word of mouth type stuff, try to get it going. And you should definitely, but just as long as there is a reward, then, and the word spreads out somehow, then you should definitely have participants, even if you haven't been pre-established, like big name anything, that you're. But if you could somehow, but again, that might be problematic if like you want to associate yourself necessarily with existing organizations. That's some consideration. But like if you think some organization that you think is doing good work could be in tune with what you're trying to do, then you could try to reach out to them if they maybe would want to invite their people to participate.
Do you know of any organizations you think would be in tune with something like this? Something brand new, something different?
Like you could definitely try to reach out to various environmental organizations, because again, you're giving out rewards. Like you're giving something to people, so it's not like you want money from them.
I just want the what do you call it, the stamp? What do you call it?
Yeah, sure, but like essentially what you would want, like the exchange is like you will give opportunity to win some money to their folks, for them just inviting their folks. It's essentially it's pretty fair. It would be good to like look through. You could just try to filter it, like, okay, a kind of organization. You could try the debate. For instance, like definitely you could try debating organizations. Because they have kids who have the skills and would like the money, and also many of them would be interested in this stuff for sure, because people who get into debating, often they do have a cause or for themselves personally of some kind, and environmental one is a common one.
So it might be as simple as just picking 10 or 20 environmental organizations, 10 or 20 debating organizations, just send them a
So
link to the
invitation, because
website.
essentially
Say,
what that is like invitation with like telling them like if you think this is something for your members interesting, then invite them,
yeah,
tell them
that
about
sounds
it.
good.
And of
Cool. I
course,
like it.
some will reject probably for whatever reasons.
Sure.
You just shouldn't expect that 100% like everybody of the people you reach
Sure.
out to will be cooperative, but some will.
Yeah.
And again,
As far as
I can definitely like put word through to the debating community generally because
great.
I do know people who would be interested in that.
Now, as far as reading, I guess reading them all, is there a good way to kind of get rid of some of the ones that aren't worth reading, or like in your experience, if I get thousands and thousands of them, how do I
Well,
filter
you
them
can
in order
set
to get
up.
my reading?
That's the thing. You need to think it through and set up. Okay, what's the limit? Like, how many entries can I actually evaluate, or do
Yeah.
want to evaluate, and then figure out okay how much one person who can actually review reasonably, and like as on a volunteer basis, or if I've actually compensated them for that as like a kind of job. And
Mhm.
you may want to, in these kinds of competitions, it's kind of important who the judges are, who decide.
Right.
Because like you need to be like upfront about that and make the whole decision making process should be absolutely clear, written
Yeah.
down, and
Sure.
what are the people, and it should be people who have credentials.
Yeah.
In some sense, like could be like debating judge credentials. I think would be a pretty good place to start because I know that judges are actually trained in the debating world to be able to decide these things. Could be some kind of writer person who's an activist. Could be somebody who has been like I think could be even like a politically involved person in the movement of some sort. But there's just they should have like a intellectual background. This should be
Okay.
somebody who probably understands something about
So that might
communication.
be the first challenge then before I can really send it out, or kind of have to have the judges in mind because I mean
Yeah,
obviously it can't be just me.
sure, sure. Like you can
So,
be in part of course, the
yeah.
jury, but it would be kind of weird if it was just you. I
Exactly.
personally am giving just money for what I like.
Exactly. I
Needs to be a
agree.
panel.
Yeah.
Standard panel is at least three.
At least three people. So
It should
I
be
gotta find at least.
it should be probably an odd number in case it's some sort of like a decision thing, like a Supreme Court
Right.
model.
Yeah.
And generally, and like I said, two is probably still too little because then the issue is that like the main one can overrule always the
Yeah.
other one
Exactly.
who's
Yeah.
on
You
there
want at
with them.
least three or
And
five for sure.
if you have like a whole bunch of like to judge, a whole bunch of essays to judge, then you can have either some sort of point system model, and
Mm.
only if all the three judges gave the same amount of points to a certain number of the essays, you would try to get some sort of discussion to just like somebody with the veto, essentially like overruling the main judge. It's usually always
Yeah.
a main judge who has a final decision on things in case there's a draw based on the system. But in a writing competition, you don't have to deal with that. In a writing competition, you could just say we will like all of the panel, the judges will just discuss it and qualitatively
Mm.
decide and just be until they reach a consensus. So you can
Right.
have like a panel
Like,
consensus model on that.
would you expect all three judges to read every single essay, or would
They
some of
would
them
have to.
kind of filter out the bad ones?
That's the thing. They would have to, but at least I would say at least look at them.
Yeah.
And then like usually the judges, how they do these kinds of competitions is they first like skim it, like skim the entries and sort of sort them into general categories. Like this looks like quickly seeing that this looks kind of better or at least a good. So you say like sort out like the ones who at first glance look like they're
Yeah.
probably very
Okay.
bad
Sure.
or not very good at all. And because
Okay.
you don't have to say that you will rank all of them, you can just say we will like select the better ones and the better ones will be ranked.
Okay.
That type stuff.
I'll have to look up some. I'll look up some good essay writing qualifications or criteria online. I guess.
Yeah,
Hopefully, I'll
like
be able to.
rules of these competitions. Like
Those be-
definitely look them up and what
Yeah,
they are doing.
that
But
sounds
usually,
good.
if it's because like mostly this model is used, it's sort of like leaning toward art, and in these art competitions, it is subjective ultimately. So
Yeah.
they don't pretend like we can calculate points, how exactly which one was better and stuff.
Okay.
They just like straight up say, yeah, we'll look them over and we will just decide which are better than the rest, and we don't even have to tier them like this is the first, the best, second, third, fourth. It would be
Yeah.
just like these, like I said, like with the recitators or actors in the competition of that sort, it would be these three people are laureates. And he wouldn't say
Hmm.
like this laureate is better than the other laureate. It's just like no, they're just like equally the best. These three are equally the best. And then
Okay.
there's like second tier of like 10 more who were pretty good, but not equally as best as the best three.
All right, so here's another question along these lines. So I would love to have this book kind of finished as good as possible as first draft anyway, get it out there so that at least I can have that as a reference as part of the competition. Like essentially the essay.
Sure, yeah, this should exist book, before the whole thing.
Before the whole thing. So, it might be a year or two from now before I actually get this thing going. But I want to work on the framework because that's kind of part of the book as well, is advertising this competition to some extent. And I think I agree with what you're saying on I don't want all the details in the book itself. I want just a link to the webpage, maybe some small references as to what it's about.
General ideas, essentially the mission statement and a general sense of the kind of rules that it will have, but not the specific list.
I think it is a huge part of Pillar 3 in general, with finding purpose and helping people find purpose, is things like this, whether it's an essay or oratory or just talking with friends and family more about your purpose of life, whatever it might be, and how to make the world better. That's kind of the big push from Pillar 3, is just getting the questions out there, deep, tough questions, getting people to think about it and get them to say, yeah, now go and, like you said, that to say go and do your research. That's obviously not a great thing that you always want to say in a book, but I feel pretty strongly that there's so much out there, and I can't get it all in the one book. So
sure, but you should give them.
Go and find more.
But you need to give them some pointer. At least, for example, these things are interesting. It shouldn't end at just go research. That's just not enough by itself.
Okay, great. So I think I'll definitely roll that in. And you think that that's a fair way to just do an essay writing competition, saying, here's this book, I believe, reference that on the website, say, please read as much or as little as you want and write an essay critiquing whatever point you make it.
You could make it like because essentially the competition is about solving the problems in the book better, then clearly you need to reference the book, and that motivates the participants to look at it, because essentially you wouldn't force them to read the whole thing necessarily. You would say that you can just the essay has to be trying to solve a problem, or at least one of the problems in the book in one of the pillars.
Yeah, I like that.
So they can skim go through the contents and find okay, this is the kind of thing that interests me. I could write something about this thing. So that's a good. Also, then it's good that it's the synergy, marketing synergy, in it, promoting the book also. In that, and in the book you're promoting the competition. The competition itself is making people want to look at the book more, and the whole thing is. If you then eventually, like I said, it would be good then eventually to get to the level where you are making real life events, live events where people can meet and socialize. That definitely would come later, because for that to logistically be able to work, you need to have, like I said, the crew. We, for instance, for the Heart of Europe debating tournament, we have a volunteer crew every year of at least 10 to 20 people. And so that's something for an event, you need a crew of that size. Could be volunteers, could be different volunteers every year. That's, again, expected normal way these events work. You would just set up the rules of the event and have the funding for the logistics of the event, because you can, with live events, there could be, if you if you don't just can't fund it from somewhere else, people are actually expecting for these events to pay for them somehow to participate, at least the paying for the accommodation and just the basic stuff. So there's starter fees on tournaments. You can also just try to look at find debating tournaments and their pricing, or their what kind of how long they usually are, what kind of stuff is involved in it, and that's just but that's more long term in the future.
Yeah,
eventually some point for that, because that's the thing. You can have with the essay writing thing, you can invite people. Then just for live events, there is also some kind of cap of people. If you want to have many people at one place, then what you can do is the Zeitgeist movement kind of did meetups. You can have people meeting for a one-day event at some venue. It's also logistically fairly easy to do. Just book a venue, and staff at the venue can do the logistics on site for you. So it's you just pick a venue, and that's in terms of price and what they offer, and you should have some a podium so that you can have speakers, play music, just that some food should be there, and spaces for people to mingle and talk.